Today's story is titled Bury Your Gods by Bottom of the Barrel. The link to the story is in the description below. Please enjoy.
The city folk of Teo crowded into the many plazas. A mass of families, merchants, and holy men filed in from the many archways and tunnels of the city like a colony of ants. The air was thick with chatter and the beating heat of the sun. Lady Tahoe made her way across the cobbled street of her neighborhood, dragging her feet and staring down at her wrinkled hands. Cupped in her palms was a green copper statue, a woman in labor. A patina river poured from her, showing down onto the mottled flowers of the figure's base. The old woman caressed its flowing hair, remembering her long-deceased mother. She had fallen ill on the journey to this cosmopolis, her soul sick with longing for home. Before she passed, she had entrusted Tahoe with the water bringer and the family trade. It was just one of 100, a sea of neighbors' idols surrounding her, one to each person. Even the children carried offerings, mostly corn dolls and trinkets of boogeymen and warriors. She recognized many of the little ones. In the decades since her mother's passing, Lady Tahoe had become a highly respected midwife in the city. She was versed in the countless birthing rituals of countless cultures that called the city home, and recognized many of the carved faces of the crowd. She scanned the crowd, noting the wild array of feathers, jewelry, and cloaks that surrounded her, a mosaic of clans and religious orders, cactus eaters, woodlanders, rivermen. Everyone in Teo was either a refugee or the descendant of one. The city had stood for ages, from when gods made war over the earth and fire rained from the sky. They built the place as a safe harbor for their children, for anyone who sought safety from their more dangerous creations. At the end of the street lay the district's plaza, where the crowd dispersed into the ever-growing mass. Lady Tahoe meandered on, watching as the crowd passed by her. A group lagged alongside her, a family of Delta folk whom she'd midwifed in the past. In the center was the youngest, a little boy not even 5 years of age. Through his hand, he ran a length of conch necklace much too big for him. Tahoe recognized the shells, ancient fossils from what was now dried seabed to the north. She imagined the boy's father, a desert sailor, gifting the treasure to the boy before a long trip on the waterways. She couldn't help but notice, with sadness, that only his mother and older sister stood around the boy. He cried quietly to himself, tears falling on his father's parting gift. Ahead, a noise rose over the low chattering of the crowd. Women laughing, one howling an unknown song. More healers, Lady Tahoe thought. She wondered at their joy among such a solemn procession. The crowd continued mumbling, unbothered, comforting one another about their impending offerings as they lurched towards the center of the plaza.
What can you do?
It's the way it is. Another noise rang out, a crack from the far side of the opening. A large pair of wooden gates swung forward, ushering in a group of ruddy men and their cargo. They worked slowly, carefully rolling a giant stone disc through the crowd. One man led the way, forcing open a path for his comrades. The procession dragged on, hours of shuffling, silently wheeling, and the labored grunts of the stone bearers. Finally, the crowd began to disperse, and Lady Tahoe found herself among the final stragglers. Before her lay a large pit carved into the stone floor. Stone walls partitioned the opening into hundreds of square chambers, each stuffed with troves of glinting metal and jewels, carved stone, buckets of beads, and shells. Tahoe reached the edge of the chasm, only herself, the Delta family remaining, and a pair of giant albino guards occupying the space, surrounded by the now silent crowd. She paused, looked again at the figure, and remembered her mother's final days. What would she think, giving up their patron idol as an offering? Would the Waterbringer understand the position she was in? Her focus was broken by a cry. "I won't! I won't!" The little boy cried, clutching the necklace to his chest. He turned on his heels and tried to bolt for home. Like a flash of lightning, a guard seized him by the arm and brought him up off the ground. The boy kicked fruitlessly for freedom. The second guard approached, snatching the shells from the boy's grip and discarding them into the chambers. Mother Toha placed her figure down in panic, stumbling back from the scene. "No, it's mine! My pa—" In a moment, his cry was cut short. A knife had been produced, slashed, and disappeared before anyone could realize. The boy's shrieks receded and were replaced with a wet gurgle. Screams rang out from the crowd. His mother and sister crumbled to the floor and wailed. Blood ran from his body, pouring down into the mini idols like a waterfall of gore. Toha ran to the family's side, wrapping them in her shawl as they beat their fists bloody against the stone. She blocked their view as the guards threw the boy's corpse onto the opening. His body lay crumbled, twisting and sinking between the many stone partitions. "Now, boys," said the leader of the stone gang. They had come into position over the pit during the commotion. Without a word, his men dropped the slab. The gaunt stone lid came careening down, crushing the mangled little boy down into a dozen different chambers, so fast that there was barely a moment for the squelching sound of flesh to escape the clamp of the stone seal. The corpse fell into silent shock, leaving only the women under Tahoe's cloak to cry aloud. In the silence, we heard a similar scene echoed out across the city. Screaming, followed by a loud slam, then silence. In a few seconds, the whole city fell into a fatal quiet. Then, the leader stepped forward, placing himself at the center of the seal. He scanned the crowd for a moment, his men forming a line behind him. The two guards broke off and stood at his side. His lips parted, and before words could come forth, the two men fell to their knees and slashed their own wrists. "Your gods are dead. Their day buried." He spoke in the common tongue. Blood poured from their pale skin, running into the carved face of the disc on which they prostrated. "Your gods are dead. Their day buried," he repeated, now in another language. Again came a phrase, again in a different language. He would not stop until all understood. As he recited, cackling grew from the crowd once more. Slowly, crone after crone emerged from the crowd. They stripped themselves as they went, exposing wrinkled and rotting flesh. "Your gods are dead. Their day buried." They each dipped their arthritic hands into the growing pool of blood, laughter growing as they spread the crimson over their bodies. "Your gods are dead. Their day buried." Toha prayed quietly, filled with dread by the vile breed of witch before her. She held the mourners tighter, shielding them. "Your saviors are here," the leader said now in his own tongue, voice rising over the crones howling. Tahoe knew this dialect, the same one that had driven her family from home, the same one that cast the blood magic that killed her mother. Roadmen. Below the speaker's feet, the carving had become clear. A horned owl, its face almost skeletal. Around him, the old woman rose to face the crowd and their bloody guide. In unison, their long, bony arms stretched wide to their new subjects.
Embrace your mother.